Hey everybody, it's Bruno. Here's my new episode of MB. Be my next guest on MB by clicking on the link below and we'll contact you. So listen, enjoy the episode.
That's right. What's up, you sucker?
You know, Mario, you've put so many companies on the map. You may not think so, you might not reflect on that, but even today, when you mention a company, it gets attention. But right now, in the last, I don't know, 5-6 years, we were talking about this off camera. I mean, the cost of advertising on platforms, it's out of control. So, I mean, what are some of the things that companies can do to really kind of blow it up for themselves?
Well, I think they need to talk to people like myself, like yourself, and what we're doing at Megapix Media, to give them different offerings and options on, the key thing these days is you can't expect to run a business and just sit there and just hope that people will come. Like, you build the field and they'll come type thing. You have to be aggressive and you have to get out there and tell people, you're going to shout out, what you do and who you are, right? And so it's important that you share your message and most importantly, tell your story. And I think that's the key for businesses these days. You got to tell your story. People have got to connect with you on a personal level to understand who you are and especially why you're doing what you're doing, right? And I think not as a slam to the mainstream media or whatever, but some of this, the advertising and costs are pretty expensive.
Oh, they're out of control.
For small businesses, right? You're a small business owner with maybe 2 or 3 people on staff or whatever, even 100 people on staff, and this is quite expensive for you, right? So, what we're doing at Megapix Media with our video series, for example, as our kind of flagship offering, is we're giving people that option of taking something that's effective and cost effective and helping them tell their story to help them drive, their business. And beyond that, what we do, I think that's important, I think any business should do, is that we drive all that through our social media. And heck, if businesses aren't on social media, they're going to be left in the dust.
Well, what's funny is because, ever since we really connected and reconnected, you are, take it the way you want, Mario, we as business owners, I believe you got to do things differently.
Yeah.
And what's different 10 years ago when social media was affordable, I don't think it's as affordable as it was. First of all, I know I'm playing silly. And Mario, since I met you, you're willing to do things differently than other journalists. Point in fact that we collaborate quite a bit in Megapix.
Yeah.
And look, we're here, we're shooting the breeze. Yeah. And all it is to really encourage companies to say, look at other platforms. If it's not us, it doesn't matter. But look at other avenues other than traditional ways that really is complete speculation with your money.
Well, you gotta understand, okay, first of all, if you're a business owner, you don't have the time to do this other stuff and the social media stuff. You just don't, right? All your time is being spent on running your business and doing that well, et cetera. So, and not a knock here, but I think what happens is when business owners finally decide, hey, I've got to do social media, et cetera. Okay, they usually end up hiring young kids, granted, they may know the mechanics and all the analytics and metrics and all that stuff about social media. But what they lack is the one key thing, which is the key driver to everything, is content. So you've got to understand what content works and start from that as a base. And I think that's what, spent my whole life telling stories, right? And that's where I come in on this and believe strongly that you got to get the content first, you got to get it right, and then the social media supports that.
What's really fascinating to me in the last, several years in business when people say, you know what, I want to start a marketing campaign, and they say, to your point, I really enjoy working with young people because it keeps us kind of younger.
Yeah.
I think it's unfair for them because they understand the technologies. And I always say this, they are they're social media users, but not necessarily do they know how to work the back end. And that's where people like you come in, and it is a true art to tell a story through print or through digital. I know that one person came up to us and said, we're going to hire a firm to do all these tactics. And they all come up, or most come up and say, you give us the content and we'll put it on. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that's the hard part. What do you think when people just say, I'll come up with content? What's the warning for people in business?
Well, I guess my warning is that the content has to be authentic. It has to be genuine. It has to be content that people are obviously interested in, because what's the point of putting out content if you don't have any readers or audience that want to see that content, right? So that's the key, is you got to have targeted content that's of interest to people. But also, I think more importantly, the content has to kind of walk the line between being promotional in one sense and just like a straight story, right?
Yeah.
And I think what goes wrong, I think, with a lot of companies and a lot of marketing campaigns, et cetera, it becomes way too corporate. And corporate speak, corporate lingo, all that type of stuff, where it becomes a blatant advertising, and people would get turned off by that, right? As opposed to being a story that people would be interested in following through and reading or listening to.
Right. Somebody once told me, a crisis management expert, I'll throw her name out, Melissa Agnes, and she has a podcast. You guys want to check it out. She's really good. Would you, as a company owner, big or small, would you trust your brand to a marketing firm or whatever in all conditions? So how do they manage a crisis? And basically, I thought of that. It's been over a year. I've been thinking about that because, I obsess over things. And I'm thinking, even not in crisis situations, would I actually trust anybody with my story? Not to say put it out there. Like, once you have your story, you hire somebody to put it out in the media. But what if they get our story wrong? What happens in a crisis situation where somebody's going to sue you or something?
Well, it's a good question. I guess it depends on what relationship that you have with
They better know your company.
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. Like if you're going out to the media and expecting a news story, for example, well then everything's fair game, and you don't know, and you have no control over what actually appears in print or what actually appears on TV or in radio. So that's kind of like rolling the dice, right? You're interviewed by, I won't say the name of the paper, but saying you're interviewed by a newspaper, and you're waiting to see, what's that going to look like? What's the story going to say about me, right? And so that can be a tricky situation. It could be a very anxious one for you. If you're going out, however, and looking at sponsored or paid content, well, that's something that you're involved in, and you tell your story, and it's everything that gets out comes from what you want to say, right? A type thing. So there's two avenues there to go through, right? And but when you talk about crisis, that's the one thing that I see all the time with companies. No matter what happens, boy, you better not hide. At a crisis, the worst thing you can do is hide.
Right.
You got to be upfront, and you've got to acknowledge if you made a mistake. You got to acknowledge making a mistake. You've got to be saying you're sorry, and then you've got to tell people, okay, what are you going to do to rectify something, right?
Yeah.
But for God's sake, don't hide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mario, you've been through it all. You've been a journalist, you've been a beat writer, sports, business, you name it. Well, you know what? That's pretty much all the time we have for this episode today. Thank you for tuning in with us. And you know what? Make sure you subscribe to our Megapix Media channel so you will never miss an episode. And also, you can follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram. We have content almost every day. So thank you very much for joining us. I'll see you guys soon.